When you think of art, most people would think of artists like Picasso and Norman Rockwell. But how about Maker? The artist behind these very unique but strange pieces of fantasy metal sculpturing is an Oklahoman by the name of Robert Maker. 16 years ago, Robert got bored with paint and ceramics and wanted to try something different. So, armed with scrap metal, steel, and wood, he began creating these far-out objects. It takes him an average of 1.5 months to complete each piece, and the prices range from $10 to $1,500. You can find some of Robert's work on exhibit at Galleria 50, located at 50 Penn Place. By the way, his full-time job is working as an artist for the state's education department, painting such things as normal-looking calendars for schools.
Foot tall. It's made out of various kinds of pine and fir. It's painted with acrylics, and I just call it the large blonde cabinet. This particular piece is part of a series that I did, although this is the first real large piece that I've done. It's, you can tell from my size, it's pretty good size. It's on rollers to make it easy to place and move. Detailed all the way on all 4 sides. And the reason it's called a cabinet person is it's part of the series in which the front opens. And then these drawers were designed with the idea that you didn't want any hardware here, and they just pull out. All of them are fairly deep, as you can tell. Can be used for just about anything you want. I have friends who use them for video cassette cabinets or books or just any type of cabinet that you want to use it for. It doesn't have anything specific in mind. It was just general in purpose. And this particular piece here is priced at $2,500, which that's roughly $2,000 under what the gallery price would be. Work here is basically all wood with metal facings put on it, And the facings follow various parts of the design, the hand and so forth. It was made to rust and to patina, we call it, the wood, with the oxidation out of the metal. This one has not been outside yet, so it's only for a week or two, so it hasn't really started oxidizing. Best thing to do is, after they've been out a while, then is to spray them with a good wood preservative, or else keep it in some place that's somewhat closed. I'll turn it around here so that you can see that the back is also done with the metal and so forth. This is basically a very, very simple piece of work, but one which I enjoyed doing and I think came out really rather well. This piece of work here is about $1,000, and once again that price is roughly 1/2 of what the gallery price would be. Alright, this particular piece of work here is completely welded steel. It's an irregular pattern structure, part of my, what I call my organic figure series. She's a little under 5 foot tall. The surface material is polished with stove black to give it this nice gunmetal finish. You can see the back here, it's detailed. The hair has been welded in rows in order to give it that effect. It has a real subtle tactile value, but one which I think enhances the overall figure. The face is very, very detailed, even down to having teeth and eyes and so forth. And this piece is in the vicinity, once again, my price is about $1,500, which is 1/2 of what we would have to ask, at the very least, in a gallery setting. Okay. This particular piece is basically all wood, with some metal detail done on it, here, and so forth. It has an old mop, well, not actually an old one, a mop hair. It's something new that I tried. See that the back is also detailed. Not so much as some of the others, because this one is supposed to more or less represent a highly patterned Indian style garment. While doing some studies on primitive design work, I picked up some of this and I enjoyed particular fittings here and there. This one also has a compartment that opens up in it, which goes back all the way to the back. And for the most part, you have to know that it's there or you'll never find it. This piece is roughly $1,600. This is an interior piece. This one is made not to go outside, but strictly as an interior work. It has what I call a furniture finish on it. And some of the woods, this is a combination of a great many different kinds of wood, everything from regular pine to fir to mahogany to some exotic woods that I'm not even sure what they are. Work are almost totally wood. The one on the left is totally wood. All the features and everything are painted on top of being cut out. And this one is just part of my little study of sort of folk art figurines. This one is a little plainer in terms of being very square. I tried something different on this by using stamped color, using a piece of wood with a pattern cut in it. This too is, as all mine are, full round as far as features and finishing. I don't leave anything out on them. These two pieces here each run about $250 a piece. They are interior, or what I like to call furniture pieces. Would not work well outside. This piece is welded steel in its entirety. It's one of my little planter groups. These have an indention in them, and the idea is to put that fancy crushed granite gravel in here with small containers that you could put any kind of flowers or ivy or something in it and have it drape and grow over. This also would take some sort of small planter. Now I'll turn it around in order to show the back. Once again, it's in detail. The hair is plate steel cut into ribbons and then formed around the scalp. I was trying to keep as much of a realistic look to this and yet still keep it sort of comic too at the same time. This piece I just call my ugly planter, and this one is about $2,000. Once again, the price that I have as opposed to the gallery, which would be more like $4,500. This piece of work here is entirely out of welded steel. It's an abstraction of a real person they worked with. The smoothness of it and everything, there's not a lot of very fine detail on this. It's more inclined to make the presentation I wanted without the real fine detail. This one is about $2,500, and its finish on it is glass blasted and then stove polished, so it has a sort of a satin finish on it. Over the years, it will change. The surface will take on a different patina as long as it's still in existence. And this piece of work obviously is an interior furniture piece of work. One of my smaller pieces of all welded work. This particular one is part of a group of science fiction fantasy characters, more or less comic book, that I have had a lot of enjoyment out of creating. This particular one here I call my border guard, and the idea was suggested from watching ads for these military six-wheel all-terrain drive vehicles, and so I thought, well, what we need here is an alien with a six-legged all-terrain drive animal, and I tried to keep the sort of comic book inflection in it. The little reins go around the ears. He has the teeth are detailed and a little tiny horn. The helmet is sort of World War I German. He has sand goggles. He has a little ray rifle. Even the detail, his feet down inside of here, he has a little gondola with a roll bar on it. And I'll turn this so that you can see the other side of it. The fur are strips of steel welded in layers like shingles. The body was built solid first. It is hollow within, but it's not an open frame. I thought this gave it a much greater solidness than leaving the thing too open. This particular piece here is $3,000, and it's one of, I think, the very best of my series that I've done on these. This is another of my galactic series, Little Creatures. This part was suggested by people asking me a lot to do Western art. So I decided, not being a practitioner of typical traditional Western art, that I would do something within the realm of my science fiction characters. And this one is the Lone Rider of the Purple Planet. And he comes complete with his radiation goggles and his microphone, his auxiliary oxygen intake filters. The little horse has his chain. I say horse, this is some sort of little two-legged type. He's got a John Wayne cavalry hat with the acorns on it. And I'll turn around here. He's got roll bar, turning signals, his no-skid saddle guards. There's the little tail. Also, each one of these, and there's several of this particular series of Western characters, have the little guns and so forth that come out. The base is heat-plated with brass to add a little contrast between the base and the figure. And he also has boots, fancy stirrups. Here's the typical Western rope. And he has a gun belt, so forth, so on, made out of chain. This piece is also one of the series of roughly $3,000. It's a utilitarian furniture piece that I did. It's entirely out of welded steel. It is obviously a rhinoceros, but what is not so obvious is that there is a opening inside. I have a glass dish, square one, that fits in here, and the idea was that you could put a type of ivy that does not require a great deal of plant depth, root depth, and you would be able to get the ivy to cascade down.
Welcome to the 17th Annual Toys Designed by Artists exhibition. Today you will be seeing 39 toys by 34 artists representing some 16 states. The selection was made by the curatorial staff of the Arkansas Arts Center, and they chose from 101 toys that were submitted by 79 artists, and all of those came from as many as 23 states. 8 artists are from Arkansas. 6 are from Little Rock and North Little Rock area. What will you find when you see these toys? I think you'll find an unusual use of materials, certainly a diverse point of view. Artists love to tinker and sort of fool around and have fun with his materials. And certainly all of the pieces, I think, engender a kind of curiosity about toys. What are toys? They're playthings. They entertain, they amuse, they distract, intrigue, they instruct. They stimulate curiosity, inventiveness, and imagination. Some toys imitate the miniature world, a world that is familiar to children, and sometimes they imitate the adult world. Toys reflect society to some extent, and they may also be reminiscent of the past. I think this work that you see in front of you, which is by Frank R. Cheatham from Lubbock, Texas, called A Fat Man on the Horse, probably looks to be a folk art toy of the 19th century. But really, he's a contemporary toy made in the last 2 years. So nostalgia plays a little bit of a role in this particular piece. The next piece is a push toy as well. It's by Robert Maker. I won't tell you the title right off because I think you'd like to see it work. If you see it facing the camera, it looks like an Abraham Lincoln type figure with a tall top hat. And what spins around at the top of the hat are 4 hands, probably that symbolize the 4 directions of east, north, west, and south, or the 4 seasons. It's made of metal, and it too looks like a folk art toy, perhaps of the 19th century. But if we turn it around and look at it, how is it driven? It's driven by money. The title of this piece, or perhaps I should say the steering of this piece is by money. The title of this piece is The Politician. Robert Maker from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, just has a delightful sense of humor and likes to conjure up things of this sort for his toys. The next toy that we would like to show you is a very simple toy. It's called The Proper Vehicle for My Thoughts by David Lundell from Beloit, Wisconsin. Now, it's made out of faucet handles for the outdoor faucet. The back wheel is made out of a chair roller. The head is made out of a plumbing fixture. And I think this is where we see unusual materials brought together to create a new object. It works beautifully well. It's very heavy and fits nicely to the hand. So it's perhaps one of the nicest toys that we have in the exhibition. You might be interested to know that David Lundell's father was the founder of the Buddy L Toy Company, and he grew up with many toys. But as the business failed in 1930, he hasn't been able to do anything since then in that area and is now just getting back into making toys. The next piece that we have is Bobo from the Hubba Bubba Brothers by Cheryl Owens. Bobo is a very cute little passive toy. Doesn't roll on wheels. He's one that you would pick up and you would imagine games with and you'd perhaps talk to, and other than that, Bobo would be very pleasant to see on the shelf. It's a very decorative and beautiful object. Cheryl Haler Owens, who made the Hubba Bubba Brothers, of which Bobo is part, just delights in having extraordinary creatures about. She somewhat, I think, draws her inspiration from pre-Columbian sculpture of about 300 to 500 A.D. The small piece is the articulated robot that we have coming up, and a lot of people don't get a chance to see how this works because it's behind the plexiglass case, but it's a toy that I think most of us are familiar with. By pressing a spring on the bottom, it releases the tension on the piece and the piece moves back and forth. It's made by Earl Krenetson from Grosse Pointe Farms, Michigan, and he is the one who is interested in doing basically traditional goldsmithing or metalsmithing. He's a jeweler by profession. He has studied also at the Royal College of Art in London, and he uses typical techniques that a jeweler might use. He's influenced by folk art and primitive art, and certainly what we see in this toy by technology. The next piece that we have is one that needs to be pulled along. The last piece that we'd like to show you then is by Mr. Woodley Rides Again by Virginia Wiseman from Santa Fe, New Mexico. Virginia visited a friend in Santa Fe and saw a 19th century toy that somewhat resembles this piece and went home and decided to make her own. From there, she designed a whole family of toys around Mr. Woodley, so that we have rocking horses and other kinds of animals and brothers and sisters and so on. She produces them in limited edition, so she is what we might refer to as a production toy maker, though I would say on a very small scale. So we have now looked through the various kinds of toys that we have in the show, and we see how some of them work and some of them are to be looked at, and we see that they all are a delight and a curiosity to behold. We'd like to have you enjoy the exhibit and tell your friends about it. We also would like you to try your hand at next year's competition if you feel up to that. And we gratefully acknowledge Southwestern Bell Foundation for sponsoring the exhibition, and to Mrs. Harold Cabe for sponsoring the purchase awards.